everyone, welcome to another video for SimonsStamp.com. Today I'm starting out with some taffy cardstock from Bazzill, and I'm scoring it at 5.5 so that it becomes a top folding card. So the finished card size is 4.25 wide by 5.5 tall. And I'm going to be using a stamp set today from Simon Says Stamp that was originally included in the November 2012 card kit. I'm just going to be using the heart and also a sentiment and the little houndstooth background. I'm starting out with the houndstooth background, and I'm just going to be using some wet cement ink from Hero Arts. This is the shadow ink, so it's going to dry back really nice. And I mounted my stamp on my Fiskars compact stamp press, and I'm going to be stamping it 3, just a little bit more times across the bottom of the card front. Just wanted a little bit of pattern along the very bottom of the card. And then I'm going to be moving on, and I'm going to be stamping the heart stamp from that stamp set. And it's a really, really detailed stamp. And when I'm stamping detailed stamps like this, I like to use VersaFine ink. This is in black onyx, and it's just a really great ink for all of these detailed stamps. You're going to get a nice, clear, crisp image. I also like to use my compact stamp press for this because it's a big stamp, and I can really press the center of that stamp down onto my cardstock and make sure that I get a complete stamp. So turned out great. That ink is awesome for stamps like this. Then I used Hero Art Tide Pool ink, and it's also a shadow ink, and I'm just using that for the sentiment that says hi. And I'm going to stamp this, and then I'm going to be setting it aside because I'm going to come back later and cut it out. So now I'm going to be moving on to some die cutting, and I'm using this die from Simon Says Stamp. This is the Life Bubble Horizontal 2 die. A few weeks ago in a quick tip video, I showed partial die cutting, and I'm going to show you guys a way to do that today. You'll notice that the cutting plate wasn't completely on the die cut. That's because I only wanted to cut the very bottom, just where that little tail is. And by having the cutting pad only covering that area, that's the only area that will be cut. Wherever there is no cutting pad, it won't cut through. So you'll notice that it only cut the very bottom of that die cut image right there. And I'm just going to take the die off. You can see that it just cut it off like a little flap or whatever. So now I'm going to cut the top half, but I need to do some sizing. I'm going to be stamping these letter stamps eventually inside the little bubble. So I'm taking one of the letter stamps. I'm just going to take the letter R, and I'm going to place it on the area that's already cut, so I can get an idea of how tall I need this long little talk bubble to be. So I'm going to take a pencil and just kind of look at it a little bit and then make a mark. I want it about that far away from the letter. That'll give me a nice area to cut. So now I'm placing the die back on the cardstock, and I'm really kind of moving it around and feeling it to make sure that those horizontal lines are lining up with the area that's already die cut. And at this point I decided I better trace the sides. So I matched that up to the original cut, and then I trace the sides. This is going to help me make sure that I get the die on there completely straight. This is really probably the trickiest part of doing this technique, is just really trusting your gut and knowing that you're going to get it through the die cut machine correctly. You might have to try it a few times. So I'm just lining it up with that little pencil mark right there, and I'm going to turn the cardstock and die over and make sure that it's completely straight. Kind of really just eyeballing it. And when I cut this, it turns out okay, but you'll notice that I'll have a little bit of an overcut. Not too bad, it's hardly noticeable, but you just have to realize you might have to cut this a couple times. But if you're looking for a custom shape or a custom size shape, this technique is totally worth it. I really suggest you try it out. It's a really fun technique. So again, I only put that cutting plate as far onto the die cut as I wanted. So only cut that portion. And now we're going to see how it turned out. You'll see that it made that die cut a really, really short die cut. Got a little bit of that overcut on that one side, but not a huge deal. I'm going to show you the size relation to the original die. It really cut the size about in half. Really, really cool technique. So now I'm putting some Tombow Mono multi-glue all along this little outline talk bubble here. I'm going to be adhering it onto some Bazzill 40-pound vellum. This is like a little bit like a cardstock vellum. It's great for embossing. It's super thick. It's great for making window areas on cards, things like that. So I just used my Inkadinkado Embossing Magic powder bag because I'm going to be doing embossing, and I just put that down so that I won't have to put that over the top. You could actually do the powder after adhering the die cut to the vellum. It really doesn't matter, but I just did it that way. So now I stamped the individual letters for the word friend. This is using the Plain Jane alphabet stamp from Kelly Purkey and Simon Says Stamp. And I'm just going to be embossing that with some white embossing powder. So I'm just going to sprinkle that on and get enough on there to coat all the letters. And then I'm going to go to embossing. And you'll notice that I bring my embossing gun or my heat gun in, and I've actually turned it on already. But I'm going to let it sit there and heat up because the least amount of time on the vellum is best. Vellum warps really easy with heat. So you'll notice that I'm only going to be over on the vellum for just a really short amount of time, just enough to melt the embossing powder, and then I'm done. That's really going to minimize the amount of warping that you get. So make sure you heat up your heat tool a lot before you actually apply it to your project. So I'm just trimming it out with some scissors. And then I applied some clear foam adhesive. This is from Cool Tack, and it's really great for adhering vellum and little tiny itty bitty pieces like this because it's a clear adhesive. And if you look super closely, you can see it sometimes, but for the most part, it's really invisible. So just adhere that down to the card. And now I'm cutting out that Tide Pool sentiment that I did earlier. I did an initial circle cut just around the outside edge. Now I'm going around with my scissors and doing little tiny little ticks into the starburst shape. I went all the way around one direction, and now I'm going the other way and finishing off those little points. It's a little time consuming, but this shape is super cute, so it's worth it. I then put it on some foam adhesive, just a foam square, and I put that directly over the top of that vellum piece, the die cut vellum piece, just to get a little bit of a cluster of images there. Now I'm using some enamel dots from my Mind's Eye, and these colors I thought would be really, really cute with the color palette I already had going. Adding a little bit of that kind of mustardy yellow gives it a little pop of color. So after I put those down, I pressed down the dots really well. And I decided to round the corners on the free edge of the card. So I just used my corner chomper and did the 1/2 inch rounder. And then I took my white gel pen and went around the top half of the card. You can't really see it on camera here too well, but you'll see it in the final photo. So that's the card for today. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.